Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the RDX Sports Podcast. I'm Simon Head, and the UFC welterweight division just got a little bit busier this past weekend. UFC Vegas 106 took place at the UFC Apex, where a new contender broke from the pack to join that growing group of young, up-and-coming potential champions in waiting at the top of that UFC 170-pound division. Michael Morales was undefeated heading into the fight, put on a great performance to defeat Gilbert Burns, long-time welterweight contender, top 10 staple at 170 pounds, and one of the most respected men in that welterweight division. But it was Michael Morales who got the job done on Saturday night. Great performance from him, getting the finish in the first round. I mean, Gilbert Burns, heading into this weekend, I thought Michael Morales was going to win. I didn't think he was going to win that quickly. I thought that Burns would take him the distance. Don't forget, this is a guy that not all that long ago went the distance with Khamzat Chimaev, took Chimaev all the way to the judges' scorecards. Michael Morales just went in there and blew the doors off him. It was really an impressive performance. You take a look at Gilbert Burns' recent form and you say, okay, he lost 3 in a row. We should have seen this coming. I think we thought that a defeat was on the cards potentially for Gilbert Burns in this fight. But let's not forget the 3 fighters who he lost to. These weren't scrubs by any means. The 3 of the top 4 in the division. He lost to Belal Muhammad, now a former champion. He lost to Jack Della Maddalena, the current champion. And he lost to Sean Brady, who potentially is next in line for the belt after Islam Makhachev gets his shot at JDM a little bit later this year. So certainly from those 3 losses, yeah, they're losses, but they're competitive fights against 3 of the very best in the world. So what we didn't know was how big of a drop-off we were going to see from Gilbert Burns, or just how much of a leap we were going to see from Michael Morales. And trying to weigh it all up, I think we are seeing a little bit of a drop-off from Gilbert Burns. I don't think he is quite at the level that he was at, let's say, 3 years ago. But that's to be expected. He's in his late 30s now. He's got a lot more miles on the clock. He's been through some real wars in the octagon, and he's been competitive throughout. This fight against Michael Morales was the first time in a long time that I've seen Gilbert Burns in a fight where he's looked completely outmatched. And he looked completely outmatched against Michael Morales. The big thing with Michael Morales is that it was made a little bit of a factor leading into the fight, but I think we really saw it in sort of clear as day on fight night was the range on this man. I think they said he's got the second longest range or the equal longest reach in the UFC welterweight division, the other man being Michael Venom Page. To have that kind of wingspan with that kind of punch power is incredibly dangerous for anybody at 170 pounds. And you take a look at the UFC rankings, you've got JDM obviously sitting in the champion seat right now. Belal currently still ranked number 1. Brady ranked 2. Shavkat, who is out injured right now, he's got to come back. Very dangerous operator. He's 3rd. Former champion Leon at 4, Leon Edwards. Former champion Kamaru Usman at 5. He takes on Joaquin Buckley, who's ranked 7th, a little bit later on this summer. And we've got Ian Machado Gary at 6. Michael Morales has bumped up 4 places in the UFC welterweight division, and he's now, as we sit here right now, listed 8th in the UFC welterweight division. And that begs the next question. Who does he fight next? You take a look at those names. So we've got JDM's out of reach. He's fighting Islam Makhachev. But conceivably, with the exception of Kamaru Usman, who's booked, and Joaquin Buckley, they've booked to face each other. There's 4 or 5 fighters there who are basically free and potentially available to be matched. So you got Belal. He's going to need a little bit of time to rest and recuperate after a pretty bruising encounter against JDM. He will need some time away of that, I'm sure. And to be honest, there's an absolute dynamite matchup with Colby Covington just waiting to be booked. That is a grudge match that actually I think people would buy into and would be a slam dunk booking if both men were up for it. Colby certainly seems up for it. He's been calling for it on social media. If Belal takes that fight, that's a great matchup. Sean Brady knows he's going to have to fight again. Would he fight as far down as 8 in the rankings to preserve his number 2 spot, that doesn't make a lot of sense for me. That leaves us with Shavkat, Leon, and Ian Machado Gary as available opponents. Leon's coming off a defeat. He can't really pick and choose his opponents. It wouldn't surprise me if the UFC looked to book Michael Morales versus Leon Edwards, but we shall see a bit further down the line. Ian Machado Gary coming off a win against Carlos Praches. He lost to Shavkat, bounced back against Carlos Praches. He needs to be fighting up. But looking at who's left, maybe the Sean Brady fight could be there for Ian Machado Gary. And what an opportunity that would be if Ian Machado Gary could take on and defeat Sean Brady, who looks like he's in the box seat for the next title fight after Islam Makhachev. So what an opportunity that would be. I'm just trying to matchmake all this together on the fly. Ian Machado Gary versus Sean Brady, to me, on paper, looks like the likely matchup to book next for Brady. It would certainly make sense for Ian Machado Gary. So that then leaves us, the only match available left for Michael Morales based on that is the Leon fight. Or you hold him back a little bit more and you give him the winner of the Kamaru Usman Joaquin Buckley fight. That would be a very interesting matchup as well. Imagine if Buckley wins that fight. Buckley versus Morales would be absolute fireworks. You could easily headline a fight night with that. You could easily co-main event a pay-per-view. If it was a one title fight pay-per-view, you could easily co-main event a pay-per-view with that, or for a 2 title fight pay-per-view, you stick it in that sort of featured bout slot. It's third in the main card. But this welterweight division is looking absolutely brilliant right now. I know the lightweight division is traditionally the strongest in terms of depth. The bantamweight and featherweight divisions have been on fire of late. Particularly the bantamweight division. There's so much talent at 135 pounds. Featherweights look great. Obviously, we've had a little bit of movement of talent in that division. Max Holloway is obviously going to be fighting at lightweight, taking on Dustin Poirier at UFC 318. You've got Ilia Topuria, who has now jumped ship to the lightweight division, and Alexander Volkanovski is back and on top of the 145-pound class. There's some contenders moving their way up there. You've got Lerone Murphy, Arnold Allen still around there. Movsar Evloev is the boogeyman that no one wants to get in the cage with. Probably deserves the next title shot. Might not get it. So we'll see how all that pans out. Lots going on at 45. Lots going on at bantamweight. But for me right now, the most intriguing weight class is that 170-pound division with Jack Della Maddalena causing a bit of a shake-up by winning the belt. Islam Makhachev moving up from lightweight into the welterweight division. And then you've got a host of former champions looking to bounce back. Bilal Muhammad, Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, all looking to transform their fortunes and get back up into the title mix. Contenders like Sean Brady, Ian Machado Gary, Joaquin Buckley, Shavkat Rakhmonov, I'll get his name right. And now Michael Morales added to that list. Welterweight is the most exciting division in the UFC right now, in my opinion. Can't wait to see how all this shakes out and unfolds. What we do know is we have a champion who is prepared to fight and is not looking to jump divisions. We have a whole host of contenders who are desperate to get to the top and seem quite happy to face each other. Let's see how all this goes. But the welterweight in 2025, certainly in the second half of 2025, is going to get really tasty. And I'm here for it. It's going to be a lot of fun following the fortunes of all those fighters at 170 pounds as the year unfolds. All right, this past week or since we last recorded the podcast, lots of big news has dropped regarding International Fight Week. UFC 317, of course, being the big event that is taking place as the centerpiece of UFC International Fight Week. That be on June the 28th. This year, International Fight Week in Las Vegas. I think it's the 13th annual International Fight Week, and huge week of festivities going on in Las Vegas. UFC X, the Expo. If you are going over there, make sure you get tickets to UFC X. Great fan experience. There's so much going on, so many fighters you can catch up with, and there's autograph signings, meet and greets, all that sort of stuff going on. Loads of fan activation going on with various brands and organizations around the UFC as well. Well worth checking out. during International Fight Week. That's at the Las Vegas Convention Center on the Friday and the Saturday of International Fight Week, with, of course, UFC 317 as the centerpiece on the Saturday night. We now know what the main event of UFC 317 will be. It will be Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira for the newly vacant UFC Undisputed Lightweight Championship of the World. Ilia Topuria, of course, we knew he was gunning for that title. He vacated the featherweight belt to move up. He wanted a piece of Islam Makhachev. Let's not make any bones about this. He wanted to get in there and take on Islam. Pound for pound status would have been on the line, as well as that 155-pound title. But of course, with the events of a couple of weeks ago, Jack Della unseating Belal Muhammad at the top of that welterweight division, we have a changing of the guard there. That then opens the door for Islam to move up to 170, which was always in his plans. But I think he was holding off a little bit because he didn't want to take on his sometime training partner, Belal Muhammad. Now Belal is no longer the belt holder in that division. Islam is moving up, and it looks as though with the body of work that he's amassed already at lightweight, he's going to get that next shot at Jack Della Maddalena, the first shot at Jack Della Maddalena. What it means is we need a new champion at 155 pounds, and we're going to get one at UFC 317. Ilia Topuria taking on Charles "Du Bronx" Oliveira. The champ has a name, as he once said back in the day. Don't forget, Charles Oliveira never lost his title in the cage. He lost it on the scale, failed to make weight. I think he missed by like half a pound for his bout with Justin Gaethje. And went in there, fought Justin Gaethje, beat Justin Gaethje, but did not get the belt. And that's when the famous "the champion has a name" speech happened inside the octagon. But he never made it back to the belt. He fought Islam Makhachev, and when he was champion, wasn't able to get the job done against the big Russian, lost out on that occasion. Now he gets another bite of the cherry. He gets another chance to get back to the top and to capture that 155-pound belt that, as I say, he never lost in the cage. Nobody took that belt from him except for the commission. So that's basically how that is for him. He wants to get in there and beat Ilia Topuria and take that championship belt at 155 pounds and become a two-time UFC lightweight champion. On the flip side, Ilia Topuria, dominant at featherweight, absolutely tore through the featherweight division, and his last two fights at featherweight could not have been more significant and could not have been more emphatic. A knockout of Alexander Volkanovski, who had never previously been stopped at 145 pounds. He was coming off the fight with Islam Makhachev. Was he damaged goods a little bit? Did he turn things around a little bit too fast? Quite possibly. But Topuria got the job done, knocked him out. How would he do against Max Holloway, someone who'd never been knocked out and never looked close to being knocked out in his mixed martial arts career? Well, Ilia Topuria went and knocked out Max Holloway as well. For me, those two wins elevate him to absolute number one, number two pound for pound status. You beat both of those guys, you're right up there. You knock them both out, that's different level. And now he's taking that power up to lightweight. We've seen it once before in the UFC. He fought a lightweight in London, I think it was, against Jai Herbert, former Cage Warriors lightweight champion. And Jai Herbert had a little bit of early success in that fight until Topuria stepped in and really loaded up with his shots. One of the nastiest knockouts you will ever see inside the octagon. Vicious, vicious knockout of Jai Herbert by Ilia Topuria, getting the job done in London. Huge win for him. That shows us that Topuria has the power that he can carry up to 155 pounds. He does it against Jai Herbert, who, with all credit and respect to him, he's not an elite contender at 155 pounds. He's a former Cage Warriors champion and absolutely no mug at 155, but he's not in that elite bracket in the UFC. He's going in there with Charles Oliveira, who has the record for the most finishes in the UFC and the most submissions in the UFC. This is a guy who's incredibly dangerous on the feet. He's got great striking. He's got lethal submissions on the mat. How will Ilia Topuria approach this? I think Ilia would love to take Charles Oliveira down and sub him and really make a statement. I think winning fights is not enough for Topuria. He wants to make statements with his victories. He did it against Volkanovski. He did it against Holloway. Now he's going to want to do it against Charles Oliveira. The plan was to do it against Islam Makhachev, but that's now not possible. Now it's Charlie Olives for the vacant 155-pound title. That is going to be an absolute banger at T-Mobile Arena on Saturday, June the 28th. The lightweight title is not the only belt up for grabs at UFC 317 during International Fight Week. The co-main event at UFC 317 will see the undisputed flyweight championship of the world on the line as champion Alexandre Pantoja takes on Kiwi contender Kai Kara-France, who's looking to get things right second time around as he challenges for the belt once again. Kai Kara-France had a bit of a tricky patch of form. Lost 2 out of his last 3 fights, but the last one was a huge one. A knockout win over Steve Erceg in the first round, completely elevating him above the competition and putting him straight in there with a shot at that flyweight belt. He had to go at the interim title, challenging Brandon Moreno, UFC 277, got stopped in the 3rd round in that fight. Looked to bounce back against Amir Albazi, lost a split decision. And he must have been thinking, oh my God, what do I need to do right now? They put him in with Steve Erceg in a fight that really was a must-win for him. But he managed to turn it from a must-win into a you must give me a title fight scenario. He goes in there, he doesn't just beat Steve Erceg, he blows the doors off him, knocks him out in the first round. Great performance from Kai Kara-France, and he has been handed a huge opportunity against Alexandre Pantoja, who is on a tear right now. 7-fight win streak. Listen to the names: Manel Kape, Brandon Royval, Alex Perez, Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval again, Steve Erceg, and most recently, a rear naked choke finish of Kai Asakura. He's on form. He's registered 3 title defenses at 125 pounds. He's going to want to make it number 4 when he takes on Kai Kara-France in the co-main event at UFC 317. Interesting clash of styles with this one. You've got Pantoja, who loves to close the distance, loves to get his hands on his opponents and wrestle them, grapple them, get them to the mat and look for submissions. But he doesn't mind standing and throwing to get there as well. Compare that with Kai Kara-France. He's much more of a pure striker, loves to stand and trade, loves to trust his hands, and you see it in his results. 12 knockouts from his 15 finishes, 3 submissions on the ledger as well, but the 12 KOs out of 25 career wins, that shows you where he gets his bills paid. He does it with his hands, and he's very, very dangerous, super quick, great hand speed, and coming out of that City Kickboxing gym in New Zealand, you know that he's going to be well drilled, have a great game plan, and will have had tip-top preparation heading into this. It's a great battle between the two gyms, actually. You've got City Kickboxing with Kai Kara-France taking on American Top Team, which is the biggest, most respected, most talent-packed gym anywhere on the planet when it comes to mixed martial arts. No shortage of bodies to train with, and Alexandre Pantoja is riding the crest of a wave right now. You know, it wasn't all that long ago he was struggling in the UFC a little bit. Now he's on a huge run of form, doing incredible things at 125 pounds, as I say, on that huge win streak, and will look to make it 8 fights in a row if he can get the job done on Saturday, June the 28th in Las Vegas. That will be a huge night for both men. One of them will walk away as the 125-pound champion. But that is not the only big fight on the UFC 317 card. Also announced for UFC 317, we have a lightweight bout that we were due to have earlier this year. Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano is booked once again. Moicano, of course, was due to face Dariush, but was called up on a day's notice, I think it was, to take on Islam Makhachev for the title when Arman Sarukian had to pull out during weigh-in day on the Friday. Moicano gets the call. He challenges. Unfortunately, did not go his way. Now that booking that was originally set for that fight night is now back on. Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. They know each other very well. They've been preparing for each other for a long time now. We will see those two throw down inside the octagon on June 28th. And we talked about the flyweights. We're going to crown another number 1 contender on this main card. Brandon Royval, currently ranked number 1 in the division, taking on number 6 ranked Manel Kape, who is on a tear himself, looks in the best form of his career. The winner of that one, almost certain to get the winner of the co-main event at UFC 317. That will be an absolute banger of a fight. Royval loves to stand and trade. Manel Kape loves to stand and trade. Expect fireworks at £125. More fireworks expected at £185. Paulo Costa, ranked 12th in the middleweight division, former title challenger, taking on Russia's Roman Kopylov, ranked 14th. Two guys who love to stand and bang it out in the middle of the cage. That could be a bit of a sleeper for fight of the night. It might not attract the most media attention leading into the fight, given what else is on the card, but those two could be a sleeper for fight of the night at T-Mobile Arena on June 28th. Also middleweight, Jack Hermansson returns to action. It's been a while since we've seen the Joker inside the octagon, and they've given him a hell of an opponent in Gregory Rodriguez. Robocop, it looks virtually indestructible right now in the cage. Just walks through punches, walks through opponents, and he's in a good run of form himself over recent months. He's taken on Jack Hermansson. Big fight for the pair of them at £185 to nudge them towards the upper echelon of that middleweight division. Also, we have Jonata Denise versus Justin Taffa at heavyweight. That could be fireworks for as long as it lasts. And also confirmed at women's strawweight, it's 2 top 10 contenders going head-to-head as Viviane Araújo taking on Tracy Cortez. That's number 8 versus number 10 at £115. They are your confirmed fights for UFC 317. That goes down, as I say, T-Mobile Arena, UFC International Fight Week, June the 28th. That was UFC 317, which is coming your way at the end of June. But what's coming our way the end of this week? We've got Road to UFC Thursday, Friday. That'll be morning time for us here in the UK on UFC Fight Pass. John Gooden and Laura Sanka will be on the call as the next generation of fighting talent from Asia looks to earn themselves a spot on the UFC roster. Always exciting fights on Road to UFC. Even if you can't catch the fights live at the time because of the time of the day, you might be working. Get on Fight Pass when you get home and give them a watch. Always interesting, and you might uncover a potential star of the future or two. Always worth checking those events out, and John and Laura do such a great job calling those fights as well. Always interesting. Road to UFC Thursday and Friday on UFC Fight Pass. And also on UFC Fight Pass, we have a double header from Cage Fury Fighting Championships. On Friday, you got Fury Pro Grappling 13. 2 inaugural champions will be crowned. At welterweight, Pat Sabatini versus Joe Solecki. And at bantamweight, Kevin Dantzler versus Junior Casio. But also on that card, you got Chris Weidman, former UFC middleweight champion, taking on the former US Open national champion wrestler, Pat Downey. That will be an interesting one as well. Weidman, we know, obviously retired from mixed martial arts quite recently, keeping his hand in, doing a bit of grappling, and returning to Cage Fury Fighting Championships, competing on the grappling mat in that particular event. We also have a tournament as well will be ongoing in that event, with the 2 semi-finals and the final all taking place on the same night. It's a great thing about grappling. You haven't got so much damage going on, which means tournaments are much easier to run on one night. But that's what we have on the Friday night. On the Saturday night, we've got Cage Fury Fighting Championships 142, a championship triple header at the top of the bill in Atlantic City for Memorial Day weekend. Luke Fernandez, the light heavyweight champion, taking on Christian Edwards. The winner of that will be pushing really hard for a spot either on Contender Series or maybe straight into the UFC light heavyweight roster. Light heavyweight as a division is a little bit thin on up-and-coming talent. The winner of this would stand a pretty decent chance, I would say, of getting a sniff of the UFC, whether it be through Contender Series or whether they're impressed enough to just get a contract straight up. But we shall see in the main event on Saturday night in Atlantic City. Welterweight title on the line on Saturday night. Blaine Richards taking on Eric Nolan at £170. And at featherweight, Anthony Delem taking on Ryan Cafaro for the £145 belt. 3 titles at the top of a packed fight card. John Morgan and CM Punk will be on the call for that event. always entertaining, always worth checking out. And Cage Fury Fighting Championships 142 will be live on UFC Fight Pass on Saturday night. That's about all we've got time for on this episode of the RDX Sports Podcast. Bit of a light weekend this weekend, not so much to check out, but do check out Road to UFC. 2 nights, Thursday, Friday on UFC Fight Pass. And then check out Fury Pro Grappling on the Friday night. And Cage Fury Fighting Championships 142 on the Saturday night. CM Punk and John Morgan on the call. Always good fun, always good banter. And the fights are always outstanding from CFFC. So be sure to check that out. Have a good rest of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and I'll speak to you next week.